Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official college football top 10 best bets here for week number 8, where I go through my 10 best picks, beginning at number 10. And we're going to start with the really late game, Washington at home. I do like them minus the 28.5. It is a massive number, and I understand there could be some concern with Washington coming off of the emotional win. Maybe it's a letdown against an Arizona State team who's sitting with only one win. They very easily could be winless this year. But guys, Washington understands this is their big chance considering what they're going to lose to the draft this next offseason. Get Michael Penix Jr., the Heisman, run his stats up as much as possible. He had a potential Heisman moment against Oregon. Give him his 5 touchdown passes, win this game, drop a 50-burger. Washington, early in the season, they were a covers machine. Recently, they've pushed some games. They didn't cover a game a few weeks ago, but I think they get back on track in terms of covering and easily destroy Arizona State in that one. That's just based off of Washington understanding the moment, realizing that this is their big chance. It's full throttle right now. There's no time for a let up. If you can get Michael Penix Jr., the Heisman, that's going to be such an amazing thing for Washington and possibly making the playoff. And honestly, this year, look at the top teams, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. They could very easily win the national title. They have the talent on offense and defense to get it done, just because there's no great team this year. Moving on to number 9, it is USC. They're now sitting -6, so they actually might be -6.5 at this point, guys. But yeah, a lot of people betting on USC. It's not surprising. We would expect USC to get back on track at home. I still think USC is probably going to lose 3 games considering they still have both Oregon and Washington on their schedule. But at home against Utah, this line seems to be a little bit of an overreaction. I understand Utah's got a very good defense. Their quarterback situation is horrific. Their offense in general is terrible. There's no way Caleb Williams and this USC team coming back home off of that terrible loss, they're going to be angry. And guys, for USC, they still have 0 conference losses, so they're still right in it. Obviously, we expect them to lose multiple games coming up, but in a game like this, it's an offensive mismatch. It's a talent mismatch. Even with how bad USC's defense is, this might be the one team that they could stop because Utah's offense has been so historically bad, and every week it's the same thing. We're talking about Cam Rising. Is he going to play? If he plays, how rusty is he going to be? I'm going against Utah in this one. I have USC easily winning and covering the -6. Moving on to number 8, it is North Texas traveling to Tulane, and we like North Texas, man. The last few weeks, the analytics that I've looked at have loved North Texas. They've rewarded me. They've covered, and I do like them plus the 20. It should be probably about a 12 or a 13-point game if you just look at the analytics, but adding my little prediction in there, I think North Texas might be able to score a late touchdown. Tulane gets ranked, and guys, Tulane's a good team for sure. They've got a really nice resume. Their only loss is on the road at Ole Miss, but let's remember, Tajay Spears is gone. This is still a Tulane team that doesn't recruit well. I think North Texas can make it close, hang in there a little bit, even if they're getting destroyed. Let's say it's 38-17. Maybe they get a backdoor touchdown. They get a backdoor cover because that is a massive spread plus the 20. Tulane sitting 91% chance to win. I certainly think they're going to win this game, but I just don't think they're going to be able to cover the 20 points in that one. Moving on to number 7, it is Washington State traveling to Oregon, and I love the over 60 in this one. Very high scoring game. I'm expecting Washington State. They're not good on defense, but they do have an offense that, even though they only scored 6 points their last game, they're going to get back on track. They're going to score a lot on the road. They're going to keep this game close. This is what Washington State always does. I like them to cover. They always play Oregon tough every season, and it's a spot where everyone is down on Washington State. You can get them for good value right now, around plus 20. But instead of doing that, I'll just say, listen, in the event where Oregon does come out angry after their loss at Washington and just throttle Washington State, we could still get an over 60 if Oregon drops a 50-burger. That's basically a guarantee to get the over 60 to hit, because we know Washington State's got a good enough offense with a veteran quarterback to at least get 14 to 21 points. I certainly think they're going to score more than that, but I do find the value in the over 60. Honestly, I think the over-under in this game probably should be like 66 or 67, just because I think Oregon Oregon's going to come out, score a bunch. Washington State's going to be kind of, after their horrible performance last week, they're going to regroup, and it's going to be a shootout, and Washington State might actually be leading this game. Oregon maybe comes back. I like the over in it either way. Moving on to number 6, it is Texas at Houston. So, guys, if you've been following this Houston team, a very nice performance last week against West Virginia. They've got momentum, the crazy plays at the end to win it. West Virginia, obviously they're not very good, but they were still 4-1 going into that game. Houston wins it. That was a weeknight game. Not very many people are following Houston. They've kind of been low-key this year. But yeah, they're sitting plus 22 against a Texas team coming off a bye at home. Give me Houston to cover in this game. I like Texas to win pretty soundly. I think they win by 2 touchdowns, but 22 points is just way too much there. I will take Houston to, maybe build off of their momentum last week, keep it close early. Texas ends up winning. It'll be interesting to see the temperature for this game. This is a 4 o'clock start Eastern time, so 3 o'clock kickoff Central in Houston, and you just got to wonder, how hot is it there? Could it be a thing where Texas decides to rest their starters into the third quarter, depending on how hot it is? Maybe Houston gets a backdoor cover. I do find value plus the 22 there. Moving on to number 5, well, I'm just taking all the underdogs that are massive. Look at these point spreads. Army plus the 30. I mean, I just think it's too much, and the analytics agree with me on this one. I was very surprised. I honestly thought this spread was going to be like 17, and I completely misread that. I guess I didn't realize how bad Army was this year, but even if you look at the context to their losses, they're sitting at 2-4. They've had very close losses. I will say for LSU, their one massive weakness is their secondary, which is part of the reason the line is probably 30, because Army can't throw, so stylistically, this should be good for LSU's defense. But just in general, if Army gets 2 of their, patented, 9 or 10 minute drives with the clock running, remember the clock doesn't stop on first downs, you could be looking at them shortening the game. LSU and Jalen Daniels is putting up ridiculous stats right now. Jaden Daniels is playing crazy football, and I think he'll continue to play well. This is kind of a random non-conference game. I'm a fan of it. I like it. Kind of a change of scenery here midway through the season, but I do think Army plus the 30, a little bit too many points there, especially if Army can get some key third or fourth down conversions running the football. Moving on to number 4, it is Minnesota at Iowa. So typically in games like this, when the over-under is really low, you're always going to want to still take the under. It's like the idea of always take the highest over-under. Like if the over-under's in the 70s, take the over. If the over-under's in the 30s, like the low 30s, take the under, just because the teams are so challenged and they'll probably still go under it. It's like Vegas can't set an over-under at like 28, which is probably where this over-under should be set at. So I think there's value in it. And yes, you can say I'm trolling here. I mean, it's going to be a lower scoring game, guys. I don't know if it's going to be 4-3. It would be funny if it actually ended up 4-3. But certainly Iowa, they can't complete a pass 5 yards down the field. Minnesota just has a terrible offense all around, and both of these defenses are not horrible. Minnesota has a safety that might be a first-round pick. Iowa always has an amazing defense, and they've got a really good cornerback. So, this game being in Iowa, the only hope either of these teams have of scoring a touchdown is probably through Iowa's run game or some type of defensive setup where, they get first and goal after a turnover, something like that. Maybe a pick six, a scoop and score. Very low scoring game there. Moving on to number 3, it is South Carolina traveling to Missouri. So yeah, the under. How about the under 59.5? Sniping it a little bit. There's good value in it. I know South Carolina was involved in a higher scoring game. Missouri's been scoring more recently, but the trend in this one is the under. I will take South Carolina in an upset. I don't feel that confident about it, so that's why I'm not going in on them in my best bets plus 6. So I'll just take the under 59.5. This is an analytical play. It's a value play, and it's a good play. So there is that one. Moving on to number 2. This is the game of the day, certainly. Number 7 versus number 3, Penn State at Ohio State, and we do like the value in Penn State plus the 4.5. Ohio State certainly could eke out a victory. They might win on a walk-off field goal. They might win if Penn State misses a field goal. Maybe it's 24-21. Maybe it's 24-20. But you are getting that 4.5 point buffer to where even if Ohio State does win, there's a lot of different scenarios where Penn State's still able to cover the 4.5. I do think Penn State is going to have significant success their defensive line versus Ohio State's offensive line. If you are the Buckeyes, I mean, you got to start Dalton Hayden. I mean, he's got to be your best running back. Maybe Trevion, but Dalton Hayden just all around seems like the better back. You'd think they'd play him a lot. Maybe that could help Ohio State jump out to a lead. Kyle McCord, I don't have much confidence in him at all. I think he can make some big throws, but he also underthrows receivers severely. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a beast, although he's dropped a few passes. And then for Penn State, Drew Aller, we'll see his first big road game. It's going to be a good environment, not as good as it should be. This game should be taking place at 7:30 on ABC. We all know this. It would be way better for the sport. But Fox, I guess, just doesn't want to compete with other networks during the primetime window, which is just pathetic. So they have to put their games on at noon. It is what it is, guys. But I do like Ohio State to win this game, but I like Penn State plus the 4.5 on the value. And then moving on to number 1, it is Ole Miss at Auburn. This is the bet of the week for sure. We love Auburn to actually win this game outright. And guys, I don't even like Auburn just in general. I said there's no way they cover last week against LSU because they have a horrible offense. But now they're coming back home. And you're giving me them with kind of a weird line plus the 6. It's like Vegas really didn't know what to do with this. It's got upset written all over it when you've got like a home dog plus the 6. I love Auburn in this game. Certainly they're going to need some type of fluke defensive touchdown. I mean, let's be honest, but I'll go in on them to win that game outright. We like them plus the 6, and then we do have a few bonus bets here. Coastal Carolina minus the 10 at Arkansas State. So this was an analytical play, but this might be the analytical model still really having it out for Arkansas State because Arkansas State got absolutely thrashed by Oklahoma in week 1. And obviously, I mean, they got just destroyed in terms of analytics. But the analytics say this should be a 20-point game in favor of Coastal Carolina, even though Coastal Carolina this year, with Grayson McCall still there, not nearly as good as they've been. Texas Tech, I should have spelled out Texas. That's just lazy. But Texas Tech at BYU, like the over 52, 2 okay offenses, not great defenses. Certainly, it seems like a very doable over in terms of that total there. Moving on to number 3, Boston College at Georgia Tech. So this is kind of funny. I think these over-unders should be flipped. You look at Texas Tech at BYU, I think the over-under in that game should be 57.5, and I think the over-under in the Boston College Georgia Tech game should be 52. It's almost like, how is that not, obviously there's analytical reasons for it, but I don't know. I like the under 57.5. That's a higher number for those two bad offenses there. Navy plus the 11.5 versus Air Force. So certainly I'll be rooting for Air Force. I'd love to see Air Force go undefeated, especially after my preseason prediction for them. I do think, though, Navy at home, both of these teams play the exact same style. The game's going to fly by. There's going to be limited possessions. I could see them covering the 11.5. They're going to be very amped up. You're facing an Air Force team. They're a rival. They're ranked. They're undefeated. Limit the possessions. Keep it close. I think Air Force wins this game 21-18, but I will take Navy plus the 11.5. Oklahoma minus the 20 versus UCF. So, yeah, UCF has really fallen off this year, unfortunately, with their injury, with the quarterback. Oklahoma coming off their bye. They're a well-oiled machine right now. We'll take them minus the 20. And then number 6, how about Miami of Ohio? Shout out to them. What a season they've had. They only have one loss right now. This is the game of the year in the MAC, at least right now. I mean, both of these teams sitting with one loss. Toledo is kind of underwhelmed my predictions, or I thought Toledo was going to be a little bit better. I know they only have one loss, but some of their games have been very close. So I think Miami of Ohio, maybe they've got a good atmosphere there. They really haven't been very good recently. I will take them to win that game outright, obviously plus the 2. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for my official college football top 10 best bets here for week number 8. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.